So this right here is the Spotify car thing, and as you may or may not know, the Spotify car thing will soon come to its demise in December of 2024. So pretty soon, thousands, if not maybe even millions, I'm not sure how many they sold exactly, but I know hundreds of people have a Spotify car thing and actually do enjoy using it. I myself actually really enjoyed using this, whether it be actually using it in the car or there's people who actually use this indoors at some kind of desk setup. It just made it really easy to control your Spotify music without having to take out your phone every single time. I know from my old car when I used to drive a Nissan Altima in 2007, that had no infotainment system, so being able to control my music with a small display was really nice, and also it gave my car a bit of a modern feel. Although it wasn't perfect because of course it did not run Android Auto, it did not run Apple CarPlay, it also did require a premium Spotify subscription, and on its initial release, I remember you had to sign up to be selected to get a chance to buy it, so it wasn't even on sale at first for everyone to buy for mass market. And it also was expensive. It's like $90. Luckily though, they are doing refunds, so you do have to just contact support and show proof of purchase. Luckily, I was able to do that, so I did actually get a refund for this, but still, it's going to become e-waste eventually. So Spotify karting users are going to be left without a nice convenient display to be able to control their music. And that's where the CarpodGo T3 Pro comes in. So shout out to CarpodGo for sending out a sample for me to check out. This is basically a display that connects to your phone via Bluetooth and Wi-Fi to project Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So with that in mind, Spotify karting users may want to consider one of these as their upgrade to their Spotify karting. Of course, there are other options such as replacing the whole car unit inside to get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, or just get a whole brand new car. But in my opinion, I think the cheapest route would probably get one of these displays. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So first, let's talk about ordering one of these. Specifically of the CarpodGo, if you order through their website, you do have the option to select a standard version, or there's also a Tesla model version, I think because Teslas don't have Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. And there's a couple other questions asking you if you have a backup camera or not, or if your car uses aux or Bluetooth or none. These will determine if they will throw in a couple of extra accessories for you to use so that you can either get Bluetooth for your car or an aux cable, or if you don't have a backup camera, they actually do offer a backup camera as well that connects directly into the CarpodGo. So in my case, my sample, they threw in all the accessories. So when you first get the box, you get pretty much everything inside of a cardboard box. So inside the box, you get the additional accessories such as the suction cup mount, the backup camera with the camera mount, and a Bluetooth aux audio receiver. Inside the actual packaging of the CarpodGo T3 Pro, you get the T3 Pro display itself, the fixed console mount, a suction cup adapter for the dashboard, a 9-volt power cord with a DC outlet on one end and then a USB-C on the other end, and a female USB-A to male USB-C OTG adapter, some double-sided 3M adhesive strips, and of course your instruction manual. So as you can see, you can get all the accessories that you need to make sure this works properly for you. Now talking about the actual hardware here, the CarpodGo comes in a sleek all black look. There's no other colors available, but it's overall a very sleek looking device. You have an 8.9-inch diagonally 1920 by 720 display, fully laminated with 700 nits of peak brightness. So overall the display itself looks very nice and very high quality. With it being a fully laminated display, it does allow the black bezels to kind of just blend into the display itself, at least when it's turned off. But I would like to see the chin of the display just become more uniform with the rest of the bezels around the display itself. And the aspect ratio is a 16:6, so it is on a longer aspect ratio compared to a more square look. On the back of the device, you'll find your ports on the left-hand side if you're looking at the display itself. At the top, you'll find a USB-C, which is meant for data transfers, so any kind of updates. Then you have a microphone as well, and then an aux port to be able to plug in an aux cord, an AV in port for the backup camera, and then you have USB-C for power. Then you'll also notice that there's speakers on the device itself. There's also a light sensor at the top speaker, which allows it to control the auto brightness of the display during daytime mode. And then you have a magnetic base here that allows you to connect it to the car mounts. So overall, I think it looks very sleek and very minimum and just overall well designed and clean. It's almost like an enlarged version of the Spotify karting. If you look at them side by side, it really is just a much bigger version of it. And I will note that CarpodGo is working on a smaller version. I think they said a 6.9-inch mini version. So if you're looking for something a little bit more compact, you don't want something this massive or this big, even though I will say for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, I think a bigger display would be nicer and would be better. But if you want something smaller, similar to your CarpodGo, then you might want to wait for the mini. I will note, for some reason, my unit came with a little bit of white, looks like dust or muck or something between the crevice of the display and the frame itself. I'm not sure what it is or if it's supposed to be there, but it's in there and it hasn't really affected anything other than just you can see it if you look for it. Now, as far as the setup, it's very simple because it just runs on the USB-C. It's just going to depend on your own car, on how you set it up and where you put it. Conveniently though, I put this in my friend's car, which is a Hyundai Elantra, which happens to have a nice spot at the very top where the basic minimum car mount can be placed with adhesive, and then this sticks right on and it's able to just sit there nicely. It almost looks OEM if you're looking at it from afar and don't see that it's connected outside externally. So like I said, it is going to depend on your car and how you finesse your way around setting it up. It is recommended that you place the T3 Pro in a spot where it's not floating and the car mount itself isn't holding the whole weight of the display, because it's not meant to be doing that. So I place it in a spot where it is nicely set on the dashboard and also being just held by the car mount to be able to move it around and angle it how you want. And the minimum car mount that I use uses 2 ball joints, so it just connects and screws on that way. And because it is a ball joint, you are able to kind of angle it around as you please. And the adhesive strips are meant, I believe, to go underneath the display so you can keep it attached and don't have to worry about it moving around. But I left that off because I actually think it's nicer to be able to angle it to one direction or the other direction if there's a passenger with you and they need to control the actual display itself. And then the driver can then just angle it back to how it was to face them. For my cable management, I just used a couple of cable clips that I already have. That's one thing I wish came included in the box. A couple of cable clips would be nice, maybe 5 at the minimum, so that you can actually do some kind of cable management. What I did was I just tucked the cable between the dash panel and also the windshield, and then made its way around to the bottom underneath the glove box, where then I use my own cable clips to hold the cable so that it's not dangling. And I also use those small adhesive strips to place it on the cable and then attach it to the side panel where the door is at. This should hopefully help prevent the cable from getting damaged whenever the door is opening and closing. And conveniently, the Elantra has an AC outlet on the passenger side, so that way I don't have to go around into the center console area. It's kind of very discreetly hidden, and if you're looking for it, you'll see it. If not, then you may just think it's another AC outlet. The cool thing about the AC outlet is that it does come with an additional USB-A port to be able to charge other devices, as well as a on-off switch button. So if you don't want to use the CarpodGo for some reason, you can just kill the power going into that particular AC outlet, which kills the power to the T3 Pro. Now, as far as actually using the display, I thought from my experience and my testing that I did, and my friend also using it at the same time, overall, I'm pretty pleased with what you're getting here. It works as intended and as expected. It's not overcomplicated and it's super simple. So one of the main things that I noticed is that it's very quick to turn on and connect right away as soon as you turn your car on. It takes like 6 seconds for it to go from the turned off state to the actual main home screen of the T3 Pro software itself, and then an additional like 6 or so seconds to get to actual CarPlay or Android Auto. Even in this hot summertime, the device can get extremely hot, and that's just because the sun is just beaming down on it, and it's also a black device, so it's just attracting so much heat. But even then, it turns on immediately, no issues, no lag. It seems to be very good and responsive. Now, I won't go into in depth about the software about Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I'll just talk about the performance real quick. Apple CarPlay performs really well. It is a 60 FPS display or 60 Hz display, which does make the Apple CarPlay experience very smooth. It also looks very sharp. So Apple CarPlay, from the experience I got with it, it performed really well and looked very smooth. On Android Auto, on the other hand, I used it with my Z Fold 5 and I found that it wasn't as smooth and as clean as Apple CarPlay. This might just be an Android optimization issue, not really the fault of the T3 Pro. So your experience may vary from phone to phone, specifically with Android. And another thing I noticed as well is that the Google Assistant is kind of ass on here. Now, again, I think this may be a Google Assistant issue or an Android and a Google software optimization issue. So for some reason, whenever you go to use this, I don't know which mic it's using. I think it might be the phone, or it might be the Bluetooth device that it's connected to, or it might just be the T3 Pro itself. But it just doesn't seem to detect your voice very well. Anytime I talk to it, it picks up a couple of words of what I'm saying. And talking about the built-in software itself, it's very clean and simple. You get the clock, and then below you have a couple of quick links to certain settings, and then Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I do think that they could combine the FM option and the Bluetooth option because they both just take you to the audio settings. But speaking of audio, there are 4 different options that you can take as far as how you want to output your audio. The standard version, which would be the most common version that most people probably would use, is the Bluetooth only mode or the display only mode, where basically when you project Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, you're just displaying stuff and all audio will still go through your phone, which also means that you can then connect your phone to another Bluetooth device such as your car. So if your car has steering wheel controls, you'll still be able to control your music that way. Then you have aux mode as well, which allows you to connect an aux cable to the T3 Pro and also to your car. So the music is kind of technically coming out of the T3 Pro, but it's still going into the car for your car speakers. Then there's also an FM mode, which allows you to transmit the audio through an FM frequency. And then lastly, you do have speakers on the T3 Pro itself, but they sound pretty bad, probably worse than your phone speakers. So I would only ever use this in a worst case, last case scenario where both your phone speakers and your car speakers are no good. So the only option you have is the T3 Pro. In that case, use it in your last case, but otherwise I wouldn't bother. And a cool notable software thing you can do is that you can set the startup logo to be your car's manufacturer logo. So on the boot up, it gives it an OEM feel, like it's made to be there and it was built by your car manufacturer. And with the display usage, I was actually pretty impressed with also the fact that you are able to get to 700 nits here. So during the day, on a sunny day, it was still getting plenty bright enough. And the light sensor works pretty well controlling the auto brightness. So as long as you have the light sensor actually facing outside of your windshield so that it can accurately control the brightness, then it works just great. But if for some reason you have this in a position where the light sensor is blocked by something, then you can manually set the brightness for the daytime mode. That way you don't have to worry about it getting dimmed down when you don't want it to dim down. And in the night mode, you can schedule this to your preferred time. And then this will be a manual control for the brightness. So you set whatever brightness you want it to be during night mode. Additionally, there is a software setting that allows you to swipe down from the right-hand side. So if you want to switch between night mode and daytime, you can easily by just swiping from the top right. The last thing I do want to note is that you do see a good amount of reflections on the display. I do wish that they came with some kind of matte version or they provided some kind of matte screen protector. You can DIY one if you want to, but it would be nice for it to come pre-packaged with that. And you only really notice the reflections if you look for it. And of course, if you're in nighttime mode during the daytime, but usually even during nighttime, it's not too bad, but if you look for them, you can see them. The T3 Pro does start at around $250, which is on the premium side and more expensive side, especially if you look at Amazon and do a quick search for CarPlay and Android Auto displays. You will find that some of them start at around maybe $75, $100. So this is around 2 times the price, but I think it's well worth the price that they're asking. It could be better if it was cheaper. Don't get me wrong. Anything is better on a discount, but I'd still personally go out and buy it myself if I needed this. Personally, I won't go out and buy another one just because I don't personally need this. But anyone who's still a Spotify karting user or doesn't have any kind of smart infotainment system, I think should consider the CarpodGo T3 Pro because it's been an overall good experience. These kind of displays are very cool and very unique because as someone who once drove a car that didn't have any kind of infotainment system, I really wish I would have looked into one of these when I still had that car because I would have definitely bought one right away over the Spotify karting, especially now that Spotify karting is going to die. Now those users will potentially want to consider one of these, and I definitely would recommend this one. And also shout out to my friend for allowing me to actually install this into her car and having her test it around as well, because like I said, my car does not actually need this. So actually letting a user who would actually benefit from one of these test it out and actually say that it's pretty useful and pretty cool is a good plus. So with that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully this was helpful, and peace.